For Chapter 7, we are going to be learning about channels. We're going to be making this pet adoption advertisement, and as before, we're going to need to make a selection, select the dog from the grass, and bring it into a composite image, and as well as the toothpaste and the toothbrush. But the difference this time is instead of using the layers panel, we're going to use the channels panel. And the channels panel has to do with color separations. And so sometimes it's a lot faster to select a whole color. For example, the dog here is primarily white. So it would be easier to use the colors panel to make a quick selection and then refine that later. And so I'm going to show you how to do that with the dog and the dental toothpaste and the toothbrush. Okay, so you need to open Photoshop and then open your image called supplies and select, first of what I want to show you is where the channels panel is. And the icon looks like this. And it's usually in the same grouping as your layers panel. It's often placed right behind your layers panel. And the channels look a lot like layers. They have the visibility icons, they have the little thumbnails that give you a preview of what's on the layer. The difference though is that the channels is a breakdown of the colors that make up the image. So since we're in RGB mode, which I don't know if you remember, but it's the colors of light, red, green, blue. So that's the colors that are on your screen to make up all the colors that are portrayed on your screen. Basically, when you put red, green, blue all together, they create white. And so what I'm going to show you is if I click on the red channel, for example, everything that is colored red in the original image here on the red channel will be pretty much white. And then the black areas, like for example the dog bowl, have very little red. And then the green, on the green channel for example, all the red background, like the red blanket that it was on in the RGB channel, on the green channel it's pretty much all black. The only thing that is green is the toothbrush, which is green, and then the toothpaste is also green because the toothpaste being white is always going to be 100% of the color because red, green, and blue combined create white. So if I go red, green, blue, you can see that the toothpaste is always white because you need all the colors to create white. So it's a little counterintuitive if you're used to working with pigments, for example, because if you put all the colors of ink together, paint, toner, you get black basically, or gray, like a muddy gray. So it's kind of the opposite in thinking. When you're thinking about mixing colors, it's kind of confusing, at least for me, because I was a fine artist before I switched to graphic design, and so I knew how to mix paint really well. But yeah, the colors of RGB would throw me off, like working with them in Photoshop. But anyway, you don't really have to understand it to be able to use this as a tool though. Basically, when you're in the channels mode and you're trying to create a selection, you just need to find one of the channels that works to your advantage. So in the instance of I think it was the toothpaste, the green channel works really well. As you can see here, the green channel, on the green channel, the toothpaste has a very clear outline. And that's what we want. We want to just create a selection using the color channel. So you want to get that nice contrast. And in the video, or in the book, they wanted us to use the magnetic lasso tool. That's what it was. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly draw it out using the magnetic lasso tool. Because there is a sharp contrast, it should do a very good job selecting the toothpaste. You can basically use any tool you want though. Just sometimes for certain situations, some tools just work better than others. But there's no wrong tool to use. In this case, it was very easy to select the toothpaste from that channel. And then, let's see. Oh yes, and then what you want to do is create a copy of the green channel. So let me go, I think if I drag, no, okay. I think I gotta press the mask icon, yes. And if I hover over it a second longer, it'll tell me save selection as channel. So basically when you create a selection on one of the channels, you can go down and click what looks like a layer mask, and it basically acts the same way. If you click on it, then you create a new channel, and it's called an alpha channel with just your selection. And I'm going to call it toothpaste. Toothpaste. And in it, I have my toothpaste. And then I just need to go ahead and do that for my toothbrush. So if I go back, so you go back to my channels, and then if you want to see the image, let me deselect too. Control D, Controller Command D. In my case, I have a Mac, Command D. So if you want to show your colors again, say you go back to layers and you're like, oh, I can't see anything other than the layer mask, that the channel that I just made, the new alpha channel, then you just click on RGB again and everything's back. But then if you still have your toothpaste selected, your alpha channel, your toothpaste channel selected, the visibility icon is on, it's going to look a little bit funny because you've got that extra color layer going over everything and affecting it. So I'm going to hide that. I just want my regular RGB. I will use the toothpaste channel that I made later to select the toothpaste and create my composite. So, but first what I want to do is go back to layers. No, actually, I don't need to go back to layers. I keep thinking I need to go back and forth. So, I'm going to actually go through my channels again. Look at the red, the green, the blue, and what I'm looking for, I should probably move my image over so I can get a better look at it. I'm just looking to see which channel, whoops, works best with the green. Oops. So here's the blue channel. And let's see. I think the green channel brings out the toothbrush the best. So that's what I'm looking for, a channel where the selection of the toothbrush is pretty much, it's going to be easy. So it's like either completely black or completely white. And again, I think it's the green channel. I think the book used the blue channel for something, but anyway, whatever works. Honestly, it doesn't really matter. In this case, I'm going to use the green channel because I think it looks great. And then basically do the same thing. I'm going to select it. I think this time I'm going to use the quick selection brush. Like I said, the book has a certain way of suggesting things, but you can do whatever you want, whatever works. And once I have my toothbrush selected, I can click on my make channel into a selection or save selection as a channel, and then it says it creates another alpha channel, which I can then name. I'm going to call it toothbrush. Okay. Now I can see that my selection's not the greatest, but that's okay. I can edit it later. And the great thing about this is now what I can do, whoops, I'm going to turn on all my color layers back on, my channels, I mean. And then what I can do is I can go and save this as a Photoshop file. So File, Save As, and I'm going to call it supplies.psd. And you want to make sure that this is how you change the format. Now, automatically, once I add layers or channels to Photoshop, it should jump to the Photoshop format, even though originally this was a .jpg format. And I think some people are confused with the different formats, because they'll just probably, when I ask them to turn in week 9 whatever, they'll say week 9 something something dot ps dot jpg, but then it'll still be on the Photoshop format. They don't actually go down and change it to JPG. So what you need to do, in this case, we want to keep it on Photoshop because we want to keep the layers. The reason why I have told people to save it as a JPG is because it's a much smaller file. You're basically giving me the file without layers and just how it looks at that moment. So, and I don't necessarily need a huge file with all the layers because it just takes longer to download and look at and stuff. Sometimes I need to see the layers, but oftentimes I don't. So anyway, that's the difference. Typing it in here doesn't mean anything if the format down here doesn't say JPEG actually, and then or Photoshop. You could write .psd, but unless it says it in the format, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be a Photoshop format unless it says Photoshop down here. So I just want to make that really clear because I think that's still confusing for some people. So I'm going to leave that as supplies.psd and save. And then the next selection we need to make is the dog. So I'm going to open up the dog. Let's see, dog.jpg. So any JPG that you open is going to just have one layer. If it has more than one layer, then I know that it was just named dog.jpg, but it's actually dog.jpg.psd. It's a PSD file because it has layers. So I hope that's not confusing. I'm trying to make it clearer. But anyway, so now let's go to channels and we're going to look again at the red, green, and blue channels. So try to find which channel has the most contrast. So is it red, is it green, or is it blue? And I would say, and the book says, and I agree with the book, that the blue has the most contrast. It's the most like black and white of the three color separations. So we'll work with the blue and make a new color. In this case, unless you have a selection going already, unless I actually select the dog, then this option for make selection into channel will be grayed out. And in this case, we're going to learn a different way because I'm going to deselect. So select, deselect, or Command or Control D to deselect. There's a different way to make the channel because you can turn a selection into a channel, or you can just create a new channel by duplicating that channel. So I'm going to duplicate the blue channel by right-clicking or control-clicking on that channel layer, and then go duplicate channel. And now I can name it. So I'm going to name it dog. Say OK. And then, let's see, after that I think I can hide my blue channel. Don't need it. Yeah. Okay, so with the dog channel, now what my goal is to basically get this image to be just black and white. There's a lot of texture in it right now, but I just want to select the dog. So the dog needs to be completely white for it to be good selection. It's kind of like a layer mask. You're working in black and white when you're making a channel selection. So we're going to take the brush. So hit B for brush on your keyboard, or you can find it over here. And then I need a soft brush. So if your hardness is pumped all the way up, just bring it all the way down. And that's probably a good size. I'm at 127. I don't remember what the book said, but I'm just kind of going off of memory because I want to see how well I can do this without the book. And then we're going to go to, let's see, it is overlay. Okay, now overlay is one of the mode options for the brush. So you've already worked with the brush in normal mode, and I'm not sure which other ones we've used, but there's a lot of modes, as you can see. There's a lot of modes. Some of them are grayed out, I think, because it has to do with the fact that we're in a black and white channel. And then basically, in overlay mode, it makes whites whiter. So you're painting, but then it's selective painting. The computer's going to do some thinking for you. So it's going to take what is on the white spectrum and make it whiter, and it's going to take what's on the black spectrum and make it blacker, which is exactly what we want, because we want to make the dog completely white. So, and also we don't want the opacity to be at 100%. We want to have it fade a little bit so that we don't lose some detail in the dog hair. So I'm going to start at 64 and see how that goes. You can always adjust it later. But I'm trying to get the dog white, but I don't want to lose the detail in the fur at the edge of the dog, because I want that selection to come out really good. I want it to look realistic, the hair. So for the middle of the dog, I don't need to worry, because I'm trying to select the whole dog, but at the edges I have to be careful. So we're going to use a different tool for that part. But for now, I might bring up my opacity a little bit. So basically it's making the whites whiter. I'm painting the dog white, because white represents what will be part of the selection, what's visible, and the rest will be hidden from view. And let me go down a little bit. As I get towards the edge, I want to lower my opacity. Okay. So, and then for the nose, because I'm in this overlay mode, it's not going to select the nose because the nose is very black. So I can select it using a different selection tool, like a marquee, for example, or the lasso. And then if I press Alt or Option Delete on my keyboard, that's the command for fill. So whatever color is in the foreground swatch right here, it will fill. I use Option or Alt Delete all the time to fill. You can see that that's pure white. Whereas over there, towards the bottom of the dog, it gets a little bit gray, which means it's starting to get transparent. So let me grab my brush again and just kind of like fade that in a little bit more. Okay. So in overlay mode, it's a little bit smart, so it's trying to avoid the dark areas so as not to select the grass, basically. Now I'm going to toggle my swatches here so that the foreground and the background switch. You can also press X on your keyboard, like X for exchange colors. And then I'm going to start painting the grass with the black to eliminate it from my selection completely. And I think I need to bring up the opacity so that it'll be a little darker. And as I get close to the dog, actually I might want to lower the opacity close to the dog, because I don't want to select too much of the white. And they said just try to make one pass. Now, I need to make more passes. Just depends. Maybe if I have it at the right opacity setting, I only need to make one pass. So that's a good reason to pay attention to the book. But I've never been one to follow recipes, so I like to experiment. So we'll see how it goes. For those of you who want to follow the book exactly, yours will probably come out perfect. Okay, and then from here, I'm going to use my rectangular marquee to just select the part that's easy to select, and then hit Option or Alt, Delete, and it fills that with black. I really only need to brush carefully around the dog with that smart brush option, mode, whatever, deselect. And then just kind of like, or you can make your brush really big. See, and bring it back to 100 so that it really covers everything at 100%. So there we go. Anyway, the point is, in order to get your selection of the dog. You need to have the dog completely white and the background completely black.